Hi, everybody. I've got a bunch of fun, cool things to share with you. Um, it's Saturday, the weather is warm. Um, when the weather goes bad, whether too hot or too warm, people do beading, especially when it rains and it's not fun to go outside. But although I do remember one of the first big neck piece that I made with found materials, I was working on it during a 106-degree heat wave with no air conditioning, but I didn't care because I was beading. Speaking of beading, uh, Joyce Scott, my mentor and teacher and friend and dear friend, is, if you're watching this right after it came out, it's July 6th, 2024. Joyce Scott's 50-year retrospective exhibit is up until July 14th in Baltimore Museum of Art, and is traveling to Seattle, to the Seattle Art Museum in October of 2024. So if you're watching this soon after I made this video, check it out either in Baltimore or in Seattle if you possibly can. It's gonna blow your mind. Joyce, I'm just gonna open at random, does incredible art out of these. I'll just give you that little taste and let that suffice, because I can't even add words to it. There's been many words written by really hip, knowledgeable people who've known her for a long time in that catalog, in that exhibit catalog. So go to the exhibit and buy the catalog too. This is not a paid endorsement. It's just basically somebody who's extremely inspiring. And also, I don't want to like name drop, but another of my friends, and somebody for whom I have a cajillion units of respect for, Sonia Clark, has done something really cool, and she has worked in fiber and beads and also other things. And this is one of those other things. It involves eyeballs, which are near and dear to my heart. I will put a link to it in the description box below the video. What I really brought this up for, though, is what do you do on a Saturday in the summer? You go to a garage sale and you find things. This is like what I found. I found a box, mostly fairly empty, but there's some beads in there. These are, people put nuts and bolts and tool and pieces, things like that in them, literal nuts and bolts or screws or nails or whatever, but they also put beads. And I found this at a garage sale that says it was in the house of an anarchist collective. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go, hey, look what I found. Okay. And I'm going to put all these beads that were in these boxes onto a plate. And you don't need to see my ugly mug here. I'll give you a video of the plate in question on which I am lovingly depositing all these wonderful beads. And I'll just do a unboxing thing for you. Yep, all mixed up. Mostly seed beads and bugles. And I don't know if it was the anarchy part of it, but no, they're mixed together in no particular order. I'll concede that they did have larger beads in their own tray. I'll get to that in a minute. But part of the reason I'm just making a big show of dumping these out on the table, on the plate here, is that in another video, sometime in the near future, I'm going to use this as bead soup and utilize these beads, start beading with them. Handily enough, let's see. One of these drawers has some beading needles in it. So let's see. These are wonderful. These little beads for people who are not using beads every day, like some of us are. The long ones are known as bugle beads. Don't ask me why, they just are. The little ones, super tiny ones, are called seed beads because they resemble tiny seeds. They're also known as rocailles. It's, I'm not pronouncing it the way the French would pronounce it. I'm not going to make a fool of myself trying to pronounce it properly because I would not do a good job of it, even though I understand a tiny amount of French. These I'm going to put in their own little corner. They'll probably end up getting mixed up, but hey, that's anarchy for you. I came from an anarchist collective house that was having a garage sale, so let's keep the anarchy fires lighted. This is not beading thread. This may be what they were using for beading thread. However, it's sewing thread. That's all right. Not the end of the world. These, I don't know what they are. Oh, they are actually earrings. I didn't even notice that until just now. Then I get my glasses on. Yeah, hey, they're earrings. Let's wear them right now. I probably would take some you know, liquid alcohol, uh, rubbing alcohol and clean them first, but hey, bonus earrings. Um, let's see. Oh, this is for all you non-jewelry people out here. This is what they call a head pin. The end, this end is not sharp like a regular, sewing pin or whatever. It's not meant to be. This end has a little stopper on it so that when you put a bead on it, let's see if the bead will go through if it's too big. Ah, no. Okay, the hole was not too big. So yeah, that's what the stopper is for, stopping the bead from falling off. These are porcupine quills, and those are actually unprocessed. Ah, this one looks like it's had a little accident, whatever, but this is a porcupine quill that's been prepared for use. They're hollow. You can see the very end there. So that hole actually goes through. It's probably too small for this big Herkin giant head pin. Oh, maybe it's not. Okay, it's not too big. It's not too small. The hole is not too small for this big Herkin head pin. So quills are used as beads. This is the before and after. This is a porcupine quill this right here is a porcupine quill with the ends still on it. And this is a porcupine quill with the ends cut off, so it can be used as a bead. Cool, huh? Yeah, more tools here. There is what looks like a work in progress. Maybe they were fixing it. This is right angle weave. Let's see. I'd have to deconstruct it a little. Oh, no, I'm not going to totally deconstruct it. I'm not going to take the whole thing apart. I like it too much. And that would be not a naughty thing to do. But no, this is not done the way right angle weave is done. Oh, this is something else. Okay. I gotta show you. Right angle weave is, oh, this is great. Okay. I will save this for a future episode so I don't spend a cajillion years talking about this particular thing. But this is something that ends up looking like right angle weave. That is not. So I'll figure that one out and I'll replicate it for you on camera. This is a string of beads that somebody started, and they may just have had the idea of making a necklace or a bracelet, and they stopped. And, okay, it's got a needle on the end of it. And this is actually a beading needle. Um, Beading needles have thin eyes, and well, the whole thing is usually thin. In other words, this beading needle is thin enough to go through beads that are this small twice. I'll show you. I'll prove it to you. Even the tiny seed beads. So yeah, the needles have to be that small. That's something else that I will leave intact because hey, why not? I mean, why not just go with what has been started? And this is the most fun jar tray so far, huh? But oh, look at that. It's going to be fun. I haven't even gotten to this yet. These are beading needles. This is something that is looks like it's from the 1990s. It says it's made in England. It doesn't have a brand on it. It just says best quality. I'm sure it is. And there they are, fresh. Let's see here. Fresh beading needles. Yay. The thing with beading needles is they can be of various qualities and they can break, they can bend, which is good. It's just a matter of how much you bend them and will they keep stay bent and stuff. So that's going back, but I'll put it on top of the tray so I don't forget about it. These are again for people who haven't done a lot of beading before. Let's see, $1.59 for a hank, man. That's a pretty good deal. That's like, let's see, how many strands are on the hank? This might be six. Let's see, let's find out. Actually, I'll put it this way. I bet the rest of the strands are in there. And this is 6 strands, so I don't know if that was, I don't see any cut off ends of thread, so it might be a half hank for $1.59 still. Price is probably from the 90s. That's $1.69. Notice that, and again, for non people who are not familiar with beads, when they're like this, when they're tied into bundles of strings, they're generally, if they're modern, they're that long. And they usually have 12 strands on them. These have 6, so that might be just the way they packaged them. And they are called hanks. Don't ask me why. I will look it up and find out if you want to know. Um, there is a little bit of difference in size. Check this out, you guys. And that's where sizing comes in. When you're working with beads, sometimes you need those sizes to match, and these do not match. This is probably size 11. This might be size 10. And that does make a difference when you're beading. Put that on top again. These, oh, and there's some mixed up. That's fine. More stray beads, what can I say? And more stray beads. I will generally not keep my beads in these types of containers because, well, they're easy to screw up. They're easy to, let's see, this does not fit. Okay, I'll leave it the way it was. These can, the beads can get mixed, and if I don't want them to mix, I won't put them in there. If I don't care if they get mixed, I do. These are plastic beads. You can tell plastic versus glass by the way the sound they make. No, actually, that's pretty hard plastic, but it still feels like plastic, looks like plastic, it's plastic. Some things like these beads, these are glass. Let's compare the sound. I'll do the glass. I don't know if you can hear that, hope you can. And then I'll do the plastic. A little more dull, so it does make a difference. Oh, this go. I was gonna keep the big beads away from the little beads, but at this point, with a mix like this, Let's just go for the gusto. Beaters call that bead soup. This is definitely bead soup. This I wanted to check out before, share with you before I went too much further. Came out of one of these lovely trays, and this is just an enigma. Obviously, excuse me, these are shells, as you can see. They're also, now these are fish vertebrae, and anything that is a vertebrae, including snake vertebrae, including our own human vertebrae, naturally has a hole in it. So that's a bead. So when I die, dig me up. If I haven't been cremated, dig me up, and if it's been long enough, my spinal cord will have dried up and withered away, and you can make beads out of my vertebrae, right? These are, whew, come on, focus sesame, baby. Focus sesame. Okay, I'll have to get a little farther away. Sorry about my non-boutique, non-beauty shop fingernails here. These are, I'll have to get a little further away. Some beads that are very, 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 very unique. The glass is called satin glass. If you look carefully, if you can see it up close, you'll see that there are all these little tiny, tiny lines of striations going through them. Those started out which is, basically a lump of semi-molten glass, not dripping, but plastic, movable glass, somehow inject a whole bunch of holes in it, quite a lot of holes, and stretch it apart, and all those holes turn into little tiny lines, little tiny striations. So it has a sheen on it that, say, a regular glass bead does not have. These are silver lined, so they have a sheen from the silver on the inside of the tube of the bead, on the inside of the hole. But that's just not the same as satin glass. It's just not. You'll have to trust me. I don't know how it's coming out on it. Yeah, take my word for it. If you ever see it, it's probably at least 100 years old, because labor intensive as it is, they probably, it's only if they even do that now, it's a serious boutique thing. And it's not going to be in regular production. I'll have to bring it out in a sec. I have just a shredded silk chiffon blouse with these types of beads on it. So I'll bring those out at the end. But again, this is like, what is this? It might be coral. I'm not going to chip away at it, but it might be, I don't know. This looks like white coral. And again, that could be, it's probably illegal to have that now. This is probably at least 20 years old, if not older. We'll let it be grandfathered in. Now, I think, yeah, I think I'm down to the last exciting tray in this box from the Anarchist Collective House. That's Olympia for you. And this is probably 100-year-old little choker necklace of fake pearls. These are glass that are coated. Some of the coating has come off of some of them. You can see that right there. Is the glass showing through those in the pearls, which, and again, it was a very common thing to buy, and they weren't that cheap, but they're a lot cheaper than a string of real pearls of that uniform size. So yeah, somebody's great grandma had those. These look like, these are ceramic. Listen to that sound. Ceramic. These are known as crumb beads. All those little tiny dots started off as little teensy bits of glass. Same with this, although some of these teensy bits of glass, focus sesame. Come on, focus, baby. Maybe I'm too close. Some of these little teeny bits of glass, which notice these are flush. This is a smooth bead. All those teeny bits of glass were completely immersed in the glass of the other glass, the glass that formed the original core of the bead. These are bumpy. These were not completely integrated in with the blue part of the glass. And some of them are, let's see that one little stripe one? That was a cane of glass where they had to take little strips of glass, put them together and melt them together into a cane and then stretch that. Here's another example of a cane that was a striped cane, and that's all glass, that was, it had to be turned into a cane, and then the cane had to be melted onto this bead of this glass. And you can see they can make little chop it into little pieces and make little dots of it, or they can leave it long and wind it around. And you can see the white stuff in there. That was wound on a mandrel. That is basically slip or clay that keeps the glass from sticking to the round, the metal rod that the glass is wound onto. So first they have to put the blue glass on, form a bead out of it, and fortunately, glass, like when it's molten, likes to make marbles, likes to make that round shape. So they made that round shape. They wound they turned the metal rod as they had a flame here, they have a rod here, they have a cane of glass here, and they're melting the glass onto the rod. Then that's for the original part. Then they take a glass rod that's a multicolored cane, and then they melt that into on top of that. So that just this little tiny bead that I got, for a couple bucks with the rest of these huge amount of beads. Look at all the work think of all the work that went into just that one bead, and God knows how much it sold for back in the 70s when it was made, but who knows, so there's always lots of, I don't want to go on about it overly, but here's a broken bead. But there's always a story behind it. Again, more complex millefiori cane. Oh, no, not millefiori, just basic little bits of striped cane again. These were made both in Japan and in Venice and in Czech Republic. So they all had their own style, and India. This was probably made in India. This actually broke, but broken beads are instructive. If I can find it on the web, I will link to a lady who actually did a research project looking through a dump, not a city dump, but a dump behind a glass factory in Germany. And it was very instructive. Those were all the rejects. Why were they rejected? Why did they break? Well, if you know glass, you can find out. But what's great about it is it shows, you can see a little bit of striation there on the whitish part, the off-white part, that shows the the way it was wound around. The cross section is hexagonal, so they would have had to press in to make that shape. And for the third part of the excitement, they dropped some little tiny little dots of glass onto that and melted that in flush, and then I don't know, marvered it, whatever the term is, to make that cross-sectional shape. This, on the other hand, hear that? That is not glass. This, I think, is plastic with I assumed that it would be yeah, it looks pretty same front to back. It's probably a little decal that was put on there. That still took some work. Let's give it some respect, even though it's not glass, it's plastic. Now, people who, this is either ceramic. Yeah, I think it's ceramic. Um, this is glass, more of the same. But I noticed I noticed a while back that people selling vintage plastic beads were, I think they're calling them lucite. We're calling using any word but except plastic, because plastic is the big, oh my God, it's the big P. It's the big no-no or something. You know, you're not, plastic means cheap. However, obviously somebody put a lot of work into this. So hey, respect to the plastic. Oh, excuse me, lucite, vintage lucite, right? Another, again, let's see. My guess is that these two beads are plastic. They sure have a nice color. Somebody started making something, then they dropped, maybe they cut it off, maybe they didn't like that part and they continued. Who knows? We've got untold bead stories. This, I'll go back to it, is again, it's ceramic. Not, I don't think it's glass. And oh, well, that might be, I don't know, it's hard to say. These are actually, style-wise, you can tell that they're using the same motifs. We tap them together. They're okay, well, I'll put it this way. They're either glass or porcelain. And I'm leaning toward glass now that I hear what it sounds like. That I'm assuming is some sort of decal. That's why I thought it was ceramic and not glass at first. But in any case, a lot of work put into it. Can I say? I will drop these back in there. Then I'm not going to go through every bead in here, but mother of pearl, natural materials. I knew this one guy who would say, rub it against your nose to make it shiny if it's natural. So I am doing that right now because your skin has a little natural bit of oil in it, and that will shine up these really old mother of pearl beads very nicely. This is not mother of pearl. It might be. I'm seeing some unmistakable sheen here. I've seen a fair amount of mother of pearl beads, and they can be inexpensive. They can be, usually find them in the form of chips, large or small. You don't usually find them in this shape, or I haven't. Maybe you're luckier than. One thing to keep in mind when dating things is that in some time periods, the availability of metal was a problem, especially in World War I and World War II. The demand was a factor. So during the Great Depression in the 1930s, people didn't want, there was not a lot of, well, they're building up for war, and they were recovering from war, they're building up from war, or both, and they didn't want to use metal on beads as much. So natural materials were a thing. Natural materials were also cheaper. I'm going to do a look what I've collected video and show you a necklace from the 1930s that is actually just made of shells and early plastic. So I'm thinking, due to the high quality of the shaping of these, that these are relatively early 20th century, perhaps. And there's a bunch of them there. Yay. Hey, there's even a button. To me, buttons are beads with two holes or differently oriented holes. Got to put my glasses back on for these. Let's see. These might be natural materials, I'm thinking. Somebody could have inherited a broken necklace from grandma That's what often happens. This is a kind of a wacky bead with some very odd colors on it, and it's glass. Let's see. It's glass, yeah. If they're clean, tap them against your teeth. If you're not sure whether they're clean, don't do that. Tap them against each other. That's glass. Hear that? That's glass. I'm trying to put it closer to the microphone in the cooter so you can hear. Um, again, this is one of those maybe it's the other broken half or of that one bead. Let's find out. Yeah, it sure, excuse me. It sure is. So what can I say? If you want to be really hip, you could string this really tightly and no one will ever know. Now, let's see. I'm trying to see, there don't seem to be any female clay or polymer clay in here. This is a crushed glass bead. And again, oh, it's just a little hard. It's just a little bead. It's just, average every day, work a day, whatever. There's a lot of work that goes into these. Again, it's machine made, but it's machine human made. Somebody has to feed a cane of glass into a machine that has the underneath side of this shape and the top side of the shape pressing down every literal second. And they're just slowly feeding this cane of this colored glass into it while there's a furnace with several more canes in there. He or she feeds it into the machine until they get to the point where the glass is not the heated part of the glass and it's not pliable enough to be stamped anymore. And they withdraw that one rod and they grab another rod and they stick another rod. The rods are in an open window of a furnace, and they just go through the rods till the rods that use the molten glass on the end, the malleable glass on the end of the rod, replace the rod, and they just do that for 8 hours, 10 hours a day. And then the thing is, the edges of once it's pressed out, it's actually still attached to a little blob that has this indented in it. So it's going to be one of about 6 or 7 at least. And that gets put in a little tray, put in a annealing area where it cools off slowly enough that the glass doesn't shatter, which it would do otherwise. Then they have to put it in a tumbler to make the edges round and all that kind of fun stuff. So just an everyday average bead, same with these. These had to be, this had to be pressed out as a round bead or an oval bead. Then somebody had to stand all day at a grinding machine with these, a row of 100 of those or 50 of those sitting on pegs. And they have something that kind of looks halfway between a compass and a whatever on the end of the machine, and that changes the angle of the dangle on these so that one by one these little facets are pressed into this one single bead. They do it 50 or 100 at a time, but still, just for a regular, like average daily, not very expensive bead, that's a lot of work. Respect the workers, right? This is a bead that is lumpy bumpy. It may have been made in India. It has there's just a little trace of slip, or the stuff that resists the glass so that the glass doesn't stick to the metal rod. And it's just lumpy bumpy enough to know that it was done on purpose that way for texture. Sometimes you'll find these types of beads made in, depending on what year it is, Germany, Bohemia, Czech Republic, and or Italy, and they're made one by hand. And the famous jewelry designer Miriam Haskell used to use those kind of like nubbly, let's say, beads in her work. So sometimes when you're finding old beads online, they'll say, oh, Miriam Haskell beads. This is not a Miriam Haskell bead, but it reminds me of one just because of the slight lump. See that lumpy bumpiness that's highlighted from the inside, from the core? So, hey, lumpy bumpiness can be a good thing. Somebody decided, oh, here we go. Those are just beads that are stuck in holes. And I can poke that out later. But again, these look, they're basically meant to imitate natural materials like banded agates, and they're glass. um, I could show you banded agates if I wanted to in a later video to compare and contrast. But these again, natural materials often sound like glass, so it's hard to say. So I don't want to say for sure, but I'm pretty natural materials don't have things like that going on in them. I once worked for a bead store, and for about 5 minutes, there was this trend of, I think they call it strawberry agate or something, or it might have been strawberry agate. Well, it wasn't agate at all. It was glass. You know how easy it was to find out? There were bubbles in the glass. Unless it's a fossil, you're not going to find bubbles in stone, unless it's lava, of course. Lava that has cooled off. This is a wooden bead. Wooden beads are cool too. So let's see. Yeah, that ought to do it. Here's another pressed glass bead that has a design on it. And the translucency of the bead helps you see that patterning. So let's see. I think that'll be it for now. I don't want to bore you for too much longer. I will take this plate as a challenge and oh, before I forget, I will show you that blouse. I'll put everything on there except for those two trays that I kept the beads in. And I'll show you that blouse if I can grab it real quick that has the satin glass. Okay, I was wrong. It's a dress. It's just really shredded, gorgeous, gorgeous silk. And shredded chiffon, because silk chiffon will rot. Silk rots. That's not doing too bad considering it's over 100 years old, Edwardian period. And it was not expensive. It had beads on it. I said, okay, I'm taking that home with me. Okay, this would be the back, but what I want you to see is the jaw-dropping, extravagant. God almighty, let's see. Yeah, jaw-dropping extravagance of not this is thread and these satin glass beads. Even the seed beads are satin glass. These are hollow. Those are actually blown glass. So they had to take these uh, molten satin glass units and actually form them. Whew, boy. And the work that went into this is incredible. Sadly, the materials, it's all totally handmade. The materials this is a sleeve. It was. And somebody had to take these seed beads, it's probably a wooden ball underneath there, and take a needle and thread and put those together. And there should be Let's see, I see 2 in front and 2 in back, so there are 8 of these on this piece. If they're all still there. Yes, they're all still there. And not to mention, do some intriguing embroidery on there. And I'm going to look on the inside to see whether this is tambour beading. Whether I can find it. I hope I can find out. I don't want to wreck it any more than I have to. It's already pretty wrecked. Yes, I'm happy to say this was these beads were put on with something known as tambour beading, and that is a whole is done differently than modern bead embroidery, or for native peoples, the beaded applique. So somebody just seriously put a lot of work into this. That's why I still have it. It's a little musty smelling, but what can I say? It has beads on it. Can't say no. So I hope you liked that little batch of sharing and stuff. I didn't even know some of these beads were in there. I did not expect to find a satin glass bead enigma in that. And I had looked through a few of the drawers and I was excited to see the bead needles in there. But hey, you never know what you're going to find at the thrift store or a garage sale, even an anarchist collective garage sale. So hope you enjoyed that. I'll talk to you later. Bye.